What's up, everybody? Welcome into today's episode of Pushing the Pile. I'm Mike Renner. He's Kyle Long. And we have special guest today, Ryan Wilson of With the First Pick podcast, because we're talking breakout players in the NFL, the youngsters, the guys in the first, second, some of these I think are third-year guys that we think are due for a breakout season. But before that, we have a lot of training camp news to get to and some injury news, fellas. A lot of injuries, obviously. Early on in camp, not uncommon to see once the pads start thumping, some guys start going down. But we got some big ones. Martin Emerson, the Browns corner, the biggest one in terms of actual impact, in terms of like length. Achilles tear confirmed. He's out for the season. So that Browns trio of corners is now a duo. Some other ones, Hollywood Brown suffers an ankle injury. Xavier Worthy suffers a head injury. Sky Moore pulls a hamstring, even though he's not really going to factor into that receiving room. But Kansas City Chiefs, 3 receivers go down the same day. Malik Neighbors with a shoulder scare is what I heard. I don't think it's going to be a big thing, but a shoulder scare. Isaiah Likely, Ravens tight end, foot fracture, out a few weeks, should be back for the regular season. Any of these move the needle for you, Ryan?
Well, looking at the Chiefs will be fine, but I want this to be an opportunity for my guy Jalen Royals to have some run in camp, because I liked him a lot coming out of Utah State. He had an injury middle last season, 2024 season. I haven't been following him in terms of training camp updates, so I'm not sure how things are going for him outside of.
He's like wide receiver 2 by de facto, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no one else.
So take advantage of that opportunity and go from there. So I think the Chiefs will be fine. But I am interested to see what this means for Jalen Royals. And you could not have been more spot on in your evaluation, maybe the most spot on evaluation ever of Sky Moore, one of the most disappointing draft picks in recent Chiefs history.
First and foremost, good to see you, Ryan. And I feel like last time you and I were together on a podcast, we were talking about breakout players. And you and I were arguing over players the likes of, Cooper in Green Bay. And you were like, well, he ain't a breakout because he did this. And I was like, well, he's going to double his stats this year. I'm looking forward to getting after this stuff. But as for the first off the ball stuff, training camp, you take a look around the league. And it was like, football's getting near because I got anxiety and I can't sleep. I'm like so excited about the season, like a nervous energy. I can't sleep. So I'm up at 1 a.m. last night reading about tsunami warnings and injury reports around the NFL. And no injury report is lengthier than the Kansas City Chiefs. And Mike's heard me talk about the kind of camp that Andy Reid runs. And, it's not just me talking about it. Go ask the players that have played there. Go ask anybody that has been under Andy Reid. His teams are tough. The hamstrings are an issue for the skill guys right now. They're running. All it tells me is that Kansas City is not messing around this year. Not that they ever do, but they're probably going to ramp it up. As for the Browns' injury to Emerson on the back end, that Achilles is brutal. We've seen how long it takes. In recent memory, we can remember some guys that aren't asked to be as explosive really struggle from a mobility standpoint with the Achilles. So that's always going to be an issue that's tough. And then the rest of the guys, it's camp, dude. It's the first time you're banging heads. Your shoulders haven't had this kind of concussive blast. You're getting used to playing football, and it takes some callousing. And while you're working your way towards the season, you're going to have these hiccups.
Yeah, I'm curious how much, from your experience, obviously it's probably different early on in your career versus later on in your career, but like how much ramp up do you need before you feel like, I'm back? Like you feel like the same guy you were last year when you're at probably tip-top shape?
Well, let's just assume that you had a full offseason of team programming. So you were at OTAs, you got to work on your technique, you were with your team lifting, you were communicating with the guys you're playing against. The only thing you have to get used to come training camp is getting into football shape. Now, the difference between being in football shape and being in OTA shape is you're beating, you're banging, you're grinding every single play, and you're straining. And, they go to the ground, the pads are full, you're heavier because of your full equipment. I would argue it takes upwards of 7 to 10 days before you really have your legs under you and you can really get after it the way you want to. But those first 7 days, it's like acclimating when you're scuba diving. You don't want to go too fast because your head will explode. That's training camp. And veterans have that figured out. And young guys, more often than not, you see going out there straining too much early and they get dinged up.
All right.
Hey, sorry, Mike, can I ask Kyle a quick question?
Yeah.
As someone who grew up in North Carolina but absolutely hates heat, how do you handle 98 degrees training camps for the first 5 to 10 days. Because I feel like now, even reading the reports, I would just retire. Like, I don't know how they do it, especially when they weigh 320 plus wearing all the stuff you're talking about.
Well, you obviously the staffs want to get these things going as early in the morning as possible because at this time of the year, it's sticky, it's muggy. And as you alluded to, Carolina, I grew up in Virginia and I'm still never used to the humidity. And it was 95 with 98% humidity in camp. It was a swamp. Look, prayer's good. Hydration's great. But this is what's necessary if you want to build that mental toughness. And can I count on you on play 81 against Philadelphia Eagles in week 16? Well, it's determined by what happens in the offseason. It's determined by what happens in training camp. So regardless of how brutal it is, it's a necessity because fatigue makes cowards of all of us.
So what I'm hearing is it seems like you trend more towards the Andy Reid style of training camp where it's just,
oh yeah, go away, get after it.
Yeah.
They open, okay. In the old days, they had the 7-man sled. Okay. That's like, in middle school and high school, that was the thing that sat over in the corner of the field that grew moss or whatever it grew because nobody touched it. Andy Reid's outfit, they open practice with a receiver on the left sled, a receiver on the right sled, and the O-line in the middle. And then they go tight ends next to the O-line, and then blah, 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 blah. They open practice before they do anything with the 7-man sled. It's all business. That's what I'm talking about.
Speaking of business, Trey Hendrickson and the Cincinnati Bengals have been trying to do business for the past few months. Well, it looks like Trey Hendrickson is the one to cave here. He is set to end his holdout, will be reportedly reporting to Bengals training camp without a new deal and without a deal imminent. Is this a surprise, Ryan, or do we think this might signal that a new deal is coming and this might be a contingent aspect of it?
Trey Hendrickson's not an idiot, so he does not want to get fined. So the hold-in it appears to be fully in place. Again, I cannot wrap my brain around the idea of what the Bengals think this is accomplishing. And, it's a different side of the coin than what Shamar Stewart went through. And you can argue whether Shamar did it right or wrong. He probably made some moves he wished he could do over. But at the end of the day, it just feels like the Bengals lead the league in unforced errors, shooting themselves in the face. Like, it just seems like they can't get out of their own way. And as a Steelers fan, watching Trey Hendrickson two times a year just demolish whoever's out there at left or right tackle, it doesn't make sense to me why you wouldn't want him out there as your best defensive player. But here we are. So I applaud him for showing up and not getting fined $50,000 a day, whatever it was. And hopefully the Bengals will come to their senses. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that one.
Yeah, guys like Troy Fautanu and Ronnie Stanley, they're one eye on the defender across from them in training camp and one ear and one eye on Trey Hendrickson and his deal. Because as you alluded to, in that division, you're facing fire-breathing dragons every single week. And Trey Hendrickson is right there at the top of the list of those guys who can murder your quarterback. Look, I said he was going to play, didn't I, Mike? I said he wasn't going to miss these games. Now, I know it's a hold-in right now, but the season ain't started yet. And week 1, Wednesday practice, when they turn up that run DMC and stretch line start, you better expect Trey Hendrickson to be out there because you're no longer in Boca Raton. You're in the building. Okay. He's a Florida Atlantic guy, by the way, Boca Raton, Florida. Shout out to, I don't even know the area code.
Owls.
Here, but shout out to the Owls. I was going to do the area code, but
okay.
I don't even know the area code. Look, when you get in the building, you're not by yourself anymore just thinking about your contract. You're looking into the eyes of your teammates and you get to see the staff members and you understand that a championship is what's most important and you're going to get paid regardless and you're going to get taken care of because of the fact that you produce so well. I think that peer pressure of being in the building leads this guy to play week 1. We're going to see him. I mean, it ain't even a question in my book.
Hey, Mike, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's up?
How does that play in, though, when you hear the things that Andrew Whitworth has said about how the organization treated him before he went and won a Super Bowl in L.A. and just the frustration factor of we know it's a business, but he's also a human being and he can hold grudges like any other person would hold grudges if he thought he's been wronged.
I was literally just going to say, Eric Eager, my former coworker at PFF, now the director of analytics or maybe like vice president of analytics, whatever the title is for the Carolina Panthers. He used to say, if you sign, you say you only get 1 year of, what was the exact wording? You only get 1 year of veteran contracts being team being favorable for a team. There are no deals beyond 1 year for veteran contracts, because if a guy is a deal for 1 year, the next year when he comes back, and if he's underpaid still, he's unhappy. And if a guy's unhappy in your locker room, you are what you saw the Bengals. Literally the Bengals last year. The Bengals were a much better team than what their record showed, but they had 3 veteran leaders in that locker room unhappy throughout the season. That has knock-on effects that you can't measure that go into the games that are not worth it. Like you're saying, they're not worth it to a franchise to do just that. That's why the draft is so important. You have to get your cheaply paid guys in the first 4 years before they start to get unhappy with being underpaid, because no vet wants to be underpaid relative to what he has. And some guys will be able to eat it and, do all the right things, say all the right things, and still be good team players. Some guys are going to be unhappy, and you don't want that in your locker room. And unfortunately for the Bengals and Bengals fans, this is no new. They only really started signing free agents in recent years. They had abandoned free agency as a concept altogether for most of the Mike Brown era as owner. They only started doing it in recent years, but they're still not doing it the way a championship franchise needs to, right? If you're a championship franchise, you need to be handing out more than guaranteed money past the first year of the deal. You need to be, extending guys well before you need to be extending them and pushing out cap hits far into the future, just with the way the salary cap's going. So yeah, for the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously they backed into Joe Burrow. They've backed into Jamar Chase and kind of, this trio of wide receivers that's keeping them afloat. But you're seeing the unfortunate sort of fruits of a poorly run organization at a lot of different avenues come to fruition here with the Cincinnati Bengals. So that was a long way of saying that they have an uphill climb, especially when you're in a division with one of the best run organizations in the NFL and the Baltimore Ravens. So just unfortunate. Let's go to the last bit of news. New York Jets, 40-year-old kicker Nick Folk, signing him. Believe he's now the second 40-year-old the Jets have signed in the past few years. The last one didn't quite work out.
You beat me. You beat me there.
Do we think you're going to be making a comeback at 40, Kyle?
Yeah, look, somebody was selling me on these BPC 157. What are these things called? Peptides or something like that?
Oh yeah, peptides.
They're like, I'm talking to my neighbor who's like some jacked Navy SEAL who's like right down the street. And he's like, you need to get on peptides because you could probably go back and play. You don't even need surgery on your shoulder, your other shoulder, your elbow, your wrist. Screw all that. Just take peptides. Look, who knows? Maybe I'll be able to have the miracle drug in the next 5 years to be able to go back and play. But as it pertains to the Jets,
there is actually some promising research going on about like truly reversing aging with gene therapy. So just a thought, just keep in the back of your mind.
For the record,
just get a
like
Google
Sydney Sweeney gene therapy, denim.
I'm a little older than you guys. I'm out when it's over and baby Jesus says time to go. Peace.
See, that's what I always thought. I thought it was like, a river. You're going to meet the end of the river eventually. It's called the ocean. All right. And then life starts. So I'm here now. Look, 40-year-old, you beat me to the joke, Mike. They had a hole to fill. They had a need to fill for a 40-year-old.
Leadership.
There's something about these old-headed kickers that are just so routine and so predictable. When I got in the league, it was Robbie Gould. And it came as no surprise to me that the guy's really good at golf too, because it's so routine-based and technique-based. Guys like these, as a coaching staff, if you're having issues with a kicker, go get an old head who's been around a long time. You don't even have to look at them in practice. They're their own coaches. I'm serious, dude.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to ask.
They're on their own field.
When you have that old kick, so a 40, Adam Vinatieri was kind of like the poster child for this. He had like literal gray hair.
They help the snapper. Everything.
Are they hanging out with the coaching staff more than the players? Because what does a 40-year-old kicker have in common with a 21-year-old, fresh out of college?
You know what they have? Saturday night together. And they usually go get, dinner together. The specialists, they always roll together. But it's always nice to see out of that triumvirate. It's the kicker, the punter, and the snapper. To have an elder statesman in that room, it really makes everybody else on the roster, breathe a little bit easier about that kicking game.
All right. Well,
and they're going to need it. They're going to need it this year.
Hopefully it works out for the Jets.
Hey, I'm going to tell on you here, Renner, as well. You'll appreciate this, Kyle. The most excited I've ever seen Renner at a pro day was watching Borealis, the Miami kicker, at the 12-hour pro day they had. He started things off by banging 65-yarders.
Jeez.
And you would have thought Mike was doing whatever Mike loves to do in his spare time. He was so excited.
So here's the thing. I hadn't watched a snap of him. I don't watch kickers until like the week before the draft because you can basically judge kickers off a spreadsheet if you want to. And you hear that sound, and it's just like unmistakable. You're like, that's different than what a kick sounds like. That guy is hitting suburbs. And lo and behold, the guy turns out to be the first kicker off the board. He's now on the New England Patriots.
Just heavy foot.
Yeah, guy's got a leg. All right, there's our training camp news roundup coming up after the break. All breakout team. Start with the offense. Start with the O-line. Start with the trenches. Coming up next.
Critics agree Landman is a hit.
We roll the dice one last time.
Men die. Oil companies don't.
All right, Kyle. We gave you your choice of all the offensive linemen. So give us maybe your process here on how you chose these, and then get right into it.
It's important to point out the process. Also, shout out to Paramount's very own Landman. We just saw the ad for that, and I'm going somewhere with this. Teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, they're kind of like oil barons. Wherever they put their dipstick in the ground, they're going to strike that liquid gold. And it seems to me as if Brett Veach and crew have done it again at the left tackle position with Josh Simmons. Now, Josh Simmons is a guy who jumped out on tape in college, like explosion, the likes of Trent Williams. I'm not saying he's as good of a player as Trent Williams or he's ever going to be a Trent Williams. But when you see pop, and there we go right there, Harry, this is where I'm going. I saw yesterday, and I tweeted this out, I saw my guy Josh Simmons getting into a little bit of a tussle with old 97 there, a little late after the whistle activity. You can judge a player off of his punch and pass protection, or you can just judge a player on his right straight. And this guy, Josh Simmons, has shown me that he can play football at an elite level, and he's got that nasty. And I texted Coach Heck yesterday, and I was like, hey, congrats on your guy Simmons. I knew he was a football player. I didn't know he was a grinder like this. He fits into your room really well. And he was just like, LOL, thanks, big guy. I know that he knows that he's got one. And I think that the fact that Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, he's on the Kansas City Chiefs. He's the Chiefs. He will be center stage. He will be center stage every week. And people are going to have a lot to say about his performance. And I think he fits the bill and he's going to meet expectations. I think he's an immediate guy who's in contention for a Pro Bowl at the left tackle. The other guy, and I started with the left tackle, but this is the right guard for the San Francisco 49ers. And we talked about him ad nauseum last year because when he hit the ground running, it was like, oh my God, it's like, when Zach Martin got in the league, he made it look easy. And another guy, I'm not going to say he's Zach Martin at all because that's a Hall of Famer. Shout out to Zach. But Dominic Puny's technique, his effort, his finish, and the way he just fits into Kyle Shanahan's system tells me that he is going to be a star in everyone's eyes, not just pushing the Pile fans and Mike and I and Ryan. And on that same conversation point, Zach Frazier, the center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is going to be center stage as well. He's going to have one of the most famous people in American sports have his hand in his butt crack week in, week out. Fans are going to see this guy. They're going to see that he gets after at the center position. And it's one of those positions that has become more appreciated in recent years, thanks to guys like Jason Kelsey and obviously Cam Jurgens filling in his shoes. Zach Frazier, Grant Barton, Cooper Beebe. We've got a lot of young centers with some juice in the league. And I know Mike wants to roast me here.
See, I was going to say, though, that pick of Zach Frazier, it doesn't really do him justice. If you have like a headshot of Zach Frazier, that's like, if you just look at his face, that's how you know that guy's an elite center. Every elite center, I think ever, and I say this in the nicest way, has been extremely
blockhead.
It just like not a good looking. It is not. It is, yes. It is a position that trends towards, let's just say, uglier guys. I mean, like, you want your center to be a big ugly. Like,
not even uglier guys, just guys that you couldn't really kidnap with two people necessarily.
Right,
like, you know, I'm thinking about the great centers, and you named Creed Humphrey. And I think the phenotype, the body type, the animalistic personality, I think Richie Incognito, although he was a guard, I think he would have been one of the best centers that ever played the game. Look, if you've got an ass kicker in the middle, you're going to be all right at guard. Now, if you've got some decent guards and decent tackles, you're going to be in a really good spot. Speaking of good guards, a guy who his slugging percentage was very high in the time that he played for the Detroit Lions is Christian Mahogany. And I was texting with my dad about this guy last night, and we were just having conversations about how Detroit will survive the exodus in their coaching staff. It's guys like Christian Mahogany. It's toughness that Penei Sewell has. It is the willingness to go do anything to make it happen offensively that Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all these guys exemplify week in, week out. But it starts with the next man up mentality. Christian Mahogany had it last year. He is going to grab this spot and never let it go. Detroit fans are going to love him. NFC North fans are probably going to hate him. And it's just another one of the long line of guys in Detroit that can block their asses off. Another guy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Talk about Mahogany and Simmons for a second, because both of them had interesting prospect profiles. Simmons was fun. I think everyone in America had the exact same take on Simmons. Everyone's like, tape was probably top 10. The knee injury is one of the worst you can have for an offensive lineman. And he'll probably go to the Chiefs and turn out like Trey Smith turned out for the Chiefs, who was fell to 6 because he had blood clots. No one wants to take a chance. Falls there, they take a chance, and now he's just never going to get hurt ever again and be like a 3-time pro. Mahogany is an interesting one because he fell because he has 2 legs that are over an inch apart in size, is what I've been told, which is some people have like a minor difference. He has like a large difference between the length of his 2 legs, and people worried about his
peg leg.
Yes. I mean, just hip issues, right? So he fell to the 6th, but if you watched him on tape towards the end of the year when he was starting, he is not a 6th rounder. That guy.
I got a question for both of you guys on this topic. If you were Christian Mahogany and both of your legs were different sizes, drastically different, would you go with the new in vogue leg lengthening on your shorter leg, or would you reduce the size of your femur on the other leg?
Oh,
think about performance here. I'm going shorter.
I think so. Leg. Lower center of gravity. You're less likely. Yeah. No, I think.
Wouldn't you just wear lifts? I mean, you're in shoes.
Right. We're getting surgery, buddy. We're not just putting on a Band-Aid. All right.
I wonder if he does wear lifts though. I wonder if he has one shoe that's just
orthotics for sure.
Yeah.
Jeff Okudah's hand was like 9 3/4 on one, and it was 8 and change on the other. And they measured the wrong hand. He told us at the combine. So they're like, this guy has like Ryan Wilson hands. Hey, let me ask you this quick before we move on. Should we rethink, or are we not giving enough thought to the idea of drafting guys like Creed Humphrey or Zach Frazier in the first round because they're centers?
Look, that's probably why I'm not in the draft room, because I would pull the trigger on a guy like that because I understand how important it is. But
Grant Barton went first round.
At the end of the day, you need guys that are catching the ball, throwing the ball, rushing the guy that's throwing the ball, covering the guy that's catching the ball. For whatever reason, those guys are very important.
So Grant Barton was the last center to go first round,
but he was a left tackle.
He was a tackle, versatile. The last guy who was like a center, everyone knew he was going to be center and got drafted to play center, I believe, was Frank Ragnow. Well, technically not. I guess Billy Price was picked right after him. So Billy Price was the last guy.
Tyler Linderbaum?
Oh yeah, Linderbaum. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, correct?
Is that right? He is.
Let me Google it right now. I don't think they did.
Yeah,
but it was because of because it would be at the interior offensive line rate when centers.
Okay. So there's actually a reason that makes sense. Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. So Linderbaum. Sorry. So there's just not a strong history of centers. And if they do, you rarely see them go top 15. Yeah. But it's funny. Everyone says, center is probably, people will say which, most valuable offensive line position. Tackle. Yeah. Then people will probably say center. Yeah. No offense, Kyle. But just because of what it means to a team. But then there's also the flip side of that. It's like, well, you don't know how a guy's going to handle your offense, handle a playbook when he's just a rookie. Maybe you don't want that guy at such a valuable position to have no experience in the NFL. So you can see it both ways, but I do agree. I mean, it feels like a position that the NFL has been able to identify. All the centers that have been drafted highly have been studs for the most part early on in their career. So feels like a little bit of a market inefficiency, if you ask me.
You know what song they play when people rush Darnell Wright? He'll be coming around the mountain when he comes. Darnell Wright is a hill, a human hill, a mountain, a national park. He is so big. He is so strong, and he is so raw and still being developed. I fully estimate that Ben Johnson is going to use this man as a sledgehammer on the backside of the run game. He is also a guy that can widen and expand. He can expand and he can really widen and displace edge defenders. When you have that weapon in your arsenal as an offensive play caller, you become very dangerous in the run game. Not only that, you become very dangerous at cutting the field in half and allowing your quarterback to sneak out the backside. I think having a play side tackle is wildly important. Mike and I talk about this all the time. He is the offensive tackle that's in the field of vision of Caleb Williams. And look, that's important. When your tackle's getting beat a lot, your quarterback doesn't have the confidence. When you've got a stone wall at the right tackle spot, a la Lane Johnson, you feel very confident. Darnell Wright's going to be a really good player. People will have an appreciation for his talent after this year. I'm not saying the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. What I'm saying is Darnell Wright is going to be on a couple lists this year, some good lists.
Ryan, you haven't been around much, obviously, but I'm just going to clue you into a little secret. We can't do a list like this without Kyle putting one Bear on. He has to do it somewhere, some way, shape, or form, has to come back to the Bears. Darnell Wright's broken out already. Are you saying – so I can see the argument that after this year, he's a top 5 right tackle in the NFL.
You think he's a top 15? Do you think he's top 15 right now?
I think he's a top 10 right tackle right now.
Okay.
Like I think that's
no. I'm talking tackles.
Tackle. I'd have to put a list.
Well, we got to get out of the teens to really break out there, bud. You're in the crowd right now.
I can see the argument being made that like, hey, Ben Johnson's offense, he becomes his version of Penei Sewell. We start talking about him in that sort of era after this, and I mean, he truly is like he's franchise right tackle. There's no doubt about it. He has been an absolute home run of a pick, but he's already broken. Let's see. He's at the press.
Hey, Mike, I Googled Tyler Linderbaum's face. He looks exactly like what you were talking about. Tyler Linderbaum looks like a 350-pound Zach Bryan.
Dude, yes. There's a phenotype, and it's not pretty, but it works.
All right, that's what I got.
So Darnell Wright, I'll just to close the book on it. If he got signed a contract right now, it would be $25 million. It would be higher than what we just saw from Bernard Raymond. It would be a big contract. So I do think he'll be even better though in Ben Johnson's offense. All right, we're getting to tight ends. Me and Ryan are back here. I tried to trend more away from first rounders. I'll say I wanted to go a little down the board because every first rounder you can say, he hasn't broken out in year 2 or year 3. It's like, yeah, you're hoping he breaks out. Everyone can say that kind of breakout, but I had to at this one put a first rounder. I had to go with Dalton Kincaid. To me, he feels like when Quinnen Williams came out of Alabama and his first 2 years was just like, that's the guy that everyone was saying was this elite player. Like if Quinnen Williams didn't succeed, I would have maybe quit scouting because it would have been impossible because watching Quinnen Williams tape was like at Alabama was as good as you'll see a defensive tackle. He was highly athletic. It's like, if that guy didn't work out in the NFL, what are we even doing here? That's how I feel about Dalton Kincaid. If Dalton Kincaid with freaking Josh Allen, MVP Josh Allen, can't turn into an elite tight end from what I saw from him at Utah, from what I saw from him early on in his career, like I might as well just pack it up and just say I'm never going to know how to do my job at the highest level. Or like just no one's ever going to know what the hell they're doing here because he was just so damn good, such a polished wide receiver. Has obviously had a lot of near misses, especially last year. And last year played through bursitis. Like if you watch his tape, he was not himself. He had a knee injury that he had fluid in his knee throughout the entire season and also tore his PCL at one point. So a injury plagued year. But if he can't break out in year 3 with that lackluster wide receiver room, I don't know. I might have to pack it up, Ryan. I might have to quit this job.
Jeez.
I feel like Dalton Kincaid is sort of the Darnell Wright category. I think he's sort of arrived. Like I've always thought he's pretty good. I know he's there. I think he was banged up a little bit last year. I get that. I would be more impressed to see Dawson Knox in this list. He feels like he's on the way out. But Dalton Kincaid is, I mean, he's going to, if you told me he was 80% of the way to Brock Bowers this season, I'm like, yeah, I could totally see that, because Josh Allen is the boat that lifts, is the tide that lifts all boats that are they're in that bag for sure. And I like Dalton. He's insanely athletic, a little older, coming out of Utah, I believe. Yeah, there's so much to like, especially given the wide receiver room that you're talking about.
And I'm rooting for him after the way they finished their season too.
Who is your tight end?
He didn't catch that ball. That was tough.
Oh, I was trying to figure out what that. Oh yeah. All right. Let's try to bring this back up a little bit here, Kyle. I didn't know Mike's non-first rounder rule, which is actually a pretty good rule, but I got lucky with this first guy, Brenton Strange, former second round pick. Evan Ingram's now in Denver, where he's going to be remade into the image of Sean Payton. I love Brenton coming out. I thought there was a lot of untapped potential coming out of Penn State. I thought he's a really good blocker, but I thought he had some athleticism that was sort of under the radar and underutilized at Penn State. And I think he's going to get that opportunity in a Liam Cohen offense from the Sean McVay tree. So we know they like their tight ends. I think he's going to surprise some people with his ability to block, but I think where you have Brian Thomas Jr., we know what he can do. They have De'Ami Brown. We'll figure out what his role is going to be as number 3. And we'll see what Travis's role is going to be, because if Travis isn't hitting the ground running as solely a wide receiver on week 1, there's going to be some opportunities for the running backs and the tight ends to get involved. And I think Brenton has a chance to do that. And I'll just mention this: Cade Otton last year in Tampa Bay in Liam's offense, 87 targets, 59 catches, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns. And Cade was fun coming out, but I don't think anyone saw that in his immediate future as an NFL tight end. So I think Strange is a better athlete than Cade. Not as big, but he could put up some pretty impressive numbers as well.
I love this pick. Love this pick from you. One, because what you just mentioned there, Cade Otton put up numbers, and comparing the two, I think Brenton Strange is the much more gifted wide receiver between the two. And there was like that stretch. Remember when all the receivers went down for the Bucs, and all of a sudden just the offense was Cade Otton's? I think he had like almost 10 catches a game for like 3 straight weeks. But I do think that in this offense, he'll get a bunch of targets, and the guy has real ability to get open on his own. There was a clip I tweeted out last year, and it was kind of to show how bad Gabe Davis was in that signing, but also it was them running the exact same route. Him and Gabe Davis run the exact same route, and you could not tell which one was the guy they just paid $13 million a year. But that's also like a feather in Brenton Strange cap. He is a 250-pound tight end. And so I agree. Those two, I think Kincaid, Strange, if they both don't go for 700 plus yards, I think I'd be very surprised. Not to say they're, no one's going to be Brock Bowers. No one's going to be Travis Kelce anytime soon, but this is those are your next up at the tight end position, in my opinion.
RAS guy, Brenton Strange.
RAS guy.
I'd get to wide receiver.
All right. I didn't follow the assignment here, Kyle. I went with Rome Odunze.
There was no assignment. That was my.
Let's go.
But look, the thing, there's so, I mean, you guys, and I'm sure you've covered this to death. They had a OC that lasted 6 weeks. The head coach didn't exactly have the locker room. Caleb was frustrated, and Rome didn't look anything like he did his last season at Washington. And I thought, and Mike, I don't know if you agree with me on this, I thought going from 22 to 23, Rome Odunze's tape was some of the best tape among the wide receivers I remember watching. He dominated 2023 his last year at UW, and I think he's going to be a little bit more comfortable in the offense. And Kyle, you can speak to what year 1 versus year 2 looks like for any player, but I would imagine you have some time to rest in the offseason finally. It's not the whole pre-draft process thing, and then athletically, we know what he can do, and I know Ben Johnson has big plans for him for being that number 1 receiver. So I expect him to break out in a big way, and I expect to see a lot more of UW than I saw of year 1 Chicago and Rome.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Rome coming out, and I echo that sentiment, where it's just like, there's just, you saw him in Washington's offense run exactly what like NFL wide receivers run. It was a very much that's why their OC ended up being the Seahawks OC, but like it was a full, complete route tree, slot, outside, any level of the football field. You saw him just do it all, and at a high level, plays the catch point, plays after the catch, getting open on his own. Really just a complete, well-rounded game. You're just like, maybe he doesn't run a 4.35 like Malik Neighbors, but there's no fat in his game. There's no reason for concern. The only reason for concern last year, when everyone's like panicking, sky is falling, should we have drafted? Who did everyone want them to draft last year, Kyle? What was the conversation? Instead
Jake
of
Daniel?
it was a tackle. Well, not that, but it was everyone was like, we should have drafted Rome Odunze. We should have drafted an offensive tackle. It's
I
like,
forget who the tackle was. Joe Alt.
okay, but they would have had a trade up for Joe Alt. Or no, it was Fashanu.
Yeah. Olu, yeah.
Should we have drafted Fashanu? It's like, dude, just watch. Like, just truly just watch. He was awesome last year. Just the numbers did not.
He was open all the time.
So he is, for my money, if I had to bet, like I think I said this on a show maybe a couple weeks ago. I was like, Rome Odunze will get his numbers. I fully trust Rome Odunze will get his numbers. There's no one else in that offense that I'm for sure gets the numbers, but Rome Odunze will get numbers. Just there's so many mouths to feed, but he will be open. And he will be the guy, if you're putting anyone in the, quote unquote, Amon-Ra St. Brown role, he's open in it.
He's a heady guy. He's really smooth. And I don't think his
Call him Dome Odunze.
I don't think his heart rate goes above, whatever a normal range is. The guy is just chill. And when you watch him run routes, he's silky smooth with it. And like I said, he's open. So if Ben Johnson can get through to Caleb Williams and get that football coming out on time and in rhythm, he's going to get his numbers.
All right. My wide receiver that I'm picking to be a breakout player. And if you followed my draft analysis, this is no surprise. It is Adonai Mitchell, the Indianapolis Colts wideout, who had what I would describe as one of the weirdest rookie seasons of all time. He was, when he was on the football field last year, he had the 14th highest target share in the entire NFL. He had a higher target share than Justin Jefferson as a rookie wide receiver 4, which is odd in and of itself. He had a top 3 target share against man coverage in all the NFL last year. His average separation score per fantasy points, which tracks, every route of every wide receiver and charts how well they separate, was the highest in the NFL. But he dropped like a zillion passes. I'm looking up right now. He dropped 4 of his 27 catchable targets, even though he only dropped 1 ball at Texas the year prior. He had the lowest catchable target rate of any wide receiver in the NFL. It was just a comedy of errors there when they tried to get Adonai Mitchell to football. But this guy is, and his teammate, Michael Pittman Jr., raves about him. He's like, if he doesn't, I think his quote was something like, if it doesn't work out that Adonai Mitchell, it's something not related to football. Because the guy is so incredibly talented that something has to happen. He has to be a factor in this offense. So I think obviously Daniel Jones might be better for his numbers than Anthony Richardson at this point, but we'll see. I do just think that he's too talented to just be the 312-yard receiver we saw a year ago.
I don't think there's any planet where he's better. Alec Pierce is better than he is. I think that should be a slam dunk in terms of, and we're talking about Alec Pierce getting paid pretty soon or trying to get paid. I'm with you. I loved AD coming out, and he was very angry that he ended up going outside of the first round. But my biggest concern is the 3-headed monster that is Richardson, Jones, and your guy Riley. So I don't know how you solve that problem, because that feels like the bigger issue.
That's it is, right? It is. So it may not work out, but it may be because of that.
That's this is almost like the Bengals offense with their defense and how frustrating it is. It's like there's so many options to get explosive plays, to make hay offensively, and you just can't do it because you've got that bottleneck at the quarterback position. It's one of the most frustrating things in the NFL.
All right, I'm going to go to running back here. Honestly, I didn't have a lot of good picks. Even this one, I'm not sure I love. I feel like everyone at running back who I was like, oh, they're going to break out. People already kind of know they're going to break out, and I didn't want to include rookies in this. I do think Kenneth Walker has a monster year with the revamped O-line in that new scheme from Clint Kubiak. But everyone knows Kenneth Walker, right? The front flip, 1,000 yards as a rookie, we're not breaking any ground there. But this guy, I think, could have a big year, or at least a breakout year compared to what we've seen from him, because really through 2 years, he hasn't done a damn thing. It's Kendre Miller, New Orleans Saints running back, who was basically Dennis Allen's arch enemy. If you remember the quotes last year, fantasy guys loved this meme. Anytime Dennis Allen talked about Kendre Miller, he absolutely hated him. And he was young coming out. He was 20 years old on draft day. Maybe he was immature. Maybe he did whatever. Maybe he got in his doghouse and never got out of it. But basically couldn't see the football field despite being a 3rd-round pick. Now he's a quote-unquote best shape of his career guy. was
Love
the quote
that.
coming out of every
Love
year.
that.
You love those guys. Every year there's half the team. And he's it this year. But I do think that now he's finally, coming from a super simplistic scheme at TCU, had 2 years in an NFL offense. You saw him kind of down the stretch when he did get some run, have some impressive runs. And I think with a 30-year-old, Alvin Kamara in a season that's, I think everyone says is going to be kind of a wash in the end, you're not going to put 300 carries in Alvin. You're going to want to split backfield here. You're going to want to see what you got in Kendre Miller. So I think, I'm not predicting like 1,000 yards, but I think he could be like a 700 to 800 yard guy that after the season, we're talking about potentially being the lead dog heading into 2026.
I agree. I think it was incredibly hard to sort of come up with something that, because even if you're sort of a service level fantasy football fan and don't care less about the actual teams, all the running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. So there's no one that's going to be on your radar that you didn't probably know about already. And Kendre Miller is a dark horse for the reasons you laid out there. And any success he had will make life easier for whoever that quarterback ends up being, because that team, as we sit here, looks like a pretty bad outfit on paper, and maybe they surprise us. That reminds me, Kyle, in terms of guys being nasty, offensive lineman, where do you rank Trevor Penning, who loved to fight at the Senior Bowl, but it hasn't quite translated to on-field success?
So Trevor Penning, what was the name of the college you went to? Like Minneapolis, Northern. Yeah. Okay. So his O-line coach at Northern Iowa was my teammate at Oregon, Ryan Clanton. So I've known about this guy for a very long time, because obviously he's like an avatar physically, like, 6'8", 320. He's probably got the washboard abs too. But he had his struggles, like so many of these guys in the NFL have in the pass protection department. But the saving grace for these guys, it's like if you can run in baseball, there's a spot on the team for you. Well, if you can run block in football and you got that nasty to you, you got a spot. He's earned his spot, and hopefully he's coming along in the pass protection department as well. But he's nasty. He's got the traits. He's just got to work on his technique in the pass pro department.
All right, Ryan, the main position, quarterback. You could only pick one. Who was your pick?
So I had to go with the first round pick here. I almost went, and I'll let you guys decide if I went in the right direction or not. I almost went with Bryce Young, because I'm going to ride the Bryce Young train either to the top of the mountain or over the cliff. But instead I went with Drake May. And I'll be honest, I thought Drake May should not have started last year, because I thought he was pretty inconsistent at UNC, and that's fine. He was a young player, and that offense was a little quirky, and he was going to a dreadful situation in New England. They threw him out there, and he swam. He swam more than he sank, and I was incredibly impressed with what they did. So now they have Mike Vrabel. They have Josh McDaniel back. They're trying to fix the offensive line finally by not drafting only centers and guards. They got Will Campbell. They got Mike's guy Kyle Williams, who's wide receiver 3 or 4 right now, so he has a chance to break out. They got a running game in Trey Henderson to go along with Ramondre Stevenson. And I think if we see Drake take the steps from year 1 to year 2 that he took as a rookie, if you told me this team won 9 games, I will be all in on that. I might be incredibly bullish on the Patriots, which is a wild thing to say, given how poor that team has been run the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. But I think Drake May can be a guy that, makes everyone forget about the fact that Mac Jones didn't exactly work out. And, I think he has a chance to be all right, let's see if I can be somewhat sensible here. Top 12 quarterback by the end of the year. Is that too rich?
I'm not even mad at it.
All right, good. I'll take it.
I'll say this. I do love how far the quarterback sort of conversation has come, that when you look at Drake May's numbers last year, I mean, they're not good, right? 2,200 yards, 6.7 yards per attempt, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But you won't find a pundit basically being like, is Drake May, this is like, is he or is he not a franchise quarterback? What you saw as a rookie, even given those stats, just like watching the film, that was what a franchise quarterback looks like. It's going to happen. It just is. He's going to be a franchise quarterback. Maybe he's not going to be top 5. Maybe he's not going to be where Jaden Daniels is. Maybe he isn't going to be, this elite guy. Who knows? He could be. He has those tools. But I think you can watch that and say he's going to be. But I think if we had the same guy maybe a decade ago and he had those numbers, you would not necessarily have the same conversation. A lot of people would be like, well, look at his numbers. Look at how bad they were. It's like, we finally are contextualizing quarterback play, at least to some degree. The Jalen Hurts conversation that happened this offseason has not been contextualized to the same degree, but we've contextualized Drake May's conversation at least. And so I'm right there with you that not only do I think he takes the next step in his development, but like the numbers will take a massive step just because they almost have to. He has a brand new team around him. They will get better. So
who has a better
one-
year, Bryce or Drake?
Drake.
that's
really?
tough. That's
Really?
tough.
Hunter Renfro's coming back. I'm just going to put that out there.
I honestly, I think Bryce has a really big year. I think he has enough, and it's what we saw down the stretch turns into actual numbers matching because he has guys that can make plays. I'll lean Drake though. I just he's closer.
Dude, the jump from year 1 to year 2 is the biggest
And
jump
that
you'll
too.
ever have as a player in the National Football League. And for a guy like Drake May, who, like you said, Ryan, he didn't even have ground to stand on as a rookie quarterback. And he went out there and he not only tread water, he was out there backstroking in that thing. He was feeling himself, and people fell in love with him, and they're going to continue to fall in love with him. And one thing that a player that I fell in love with yesterday when reading about the Patriots, Demario Douglas. So he was asked about being a slot receiver in the slot-heavy Josh McDaniels offense. He said, while there have been a lot of great players who have done a lot in this position, I'm excited to show people who are used to white chocolate how good dark chocolate can be.
Love it.
That's great. You can do the Patriot way and still be funny, okay? That's funny. I'm looking forward to watching Drake May, and I am rooting for Demario Douglas.
Oh, that is a fantastic quote. There's your all-breakout offense.
There we go.
Roman Dunze at wide receiver. Adonai Mitchell at wide receiver. Dalton Kincaid, Brent Strange, tight end. Josh Simmons, Dominic Puny, Zach Frazier, Christian Mahogany, Darnell Wright, your offensive line. Kendra Miller at running back, and then Drake May at QB. We're going to flip to the defense side. Coming up right after this. All right, edge. Ryan, give us the breakout edge of 2025.
All right, going back to the old first round. Well, the first defensive player drafted, in fact, so I went out on a ledge on this one. Leatu Latu, my guy from UCLA by way of Washington. Injuries were a huge concern at Washington, and he thought he was going to have to retire. He may have actually retired for a minute before coming back to UCLA. But I don't think there was a better technician. Be interested to hear what you think, Mike, coming out of that draft class in terms of the way he used his hands, the way he set up his pass rush moves, and he played with some juice as well. He wasn't just a finesse guy, and he flashed a little bit in Indy last year, and I think he's going to take, we just heard Kyle talk about year 2, that development being the biggest developmental step that these players take. I think Latu is going to take it to the next level. He's a little older. He's a little further along in his process and some of the other just sheer athletic or powerful edge rushers. And I think they have Kwity Paye there. They drafted JTT. I think this defense has a chance to get after it a little bit, especially along the front four.
I'll say this about Latu. He was, like you mentioned, he was a technician, and why I will trend towards technicians at a lot of positions when evaluating from college to the pros is because, to me, it's also a signal of work ethic. It's like, and that's something that once you get to the pros, no one's fully formed. Everyone has to work. And so the guys who are willing to get to that level already, well, probably chances are they're going to keep working. They're going to be the guys that are going to be doing it from year 1 to year 10 in the NFL and not be satisfied. So that's how I feel about Latu. And also the thing you said there, he did retire from football. He had the game taken away from you. He got that chance to ruminate and see how much it meant. Came back a different guy. That also plays in your corner of this guy's going to work his freaking butt off to be what he, to reach his full potential at the NFL level. And so that's why, he was the first defensive player drafted in last year's draft class. And I am right there with you that he will be, he was fine last year, 38 pressures, had some good flashes. I think this year he is a down in, down out impact edge defender. I think, like, of all the guys who are saying a defensive line breakout, like, he's going to break out to the highest level. Like he has the highest ceiling of these guys that we're going to discuss here. All right, my edge. I picked Isaiah McGuire. 1, because I love this guy coming out of Missouri. 2, because he's along a defensive line in Cleveland where there is just so much opportunity. He is not a focal point, let's say, along that defensive line. And I love his skill set paired across from Myles Garrett because he's the same body type. He is 6'4", 271 pounds, long arms, flexible to get to the edge. He had 29 pressures on 232 pass rushing snaps last year, was a part-time player. Now he is the starter across Myles Garrett. And I just think you're going to see a complete all-around player, maybe not a dominant sort of player, but a guy who can produce given the role that he's in and make this Browns defensive line kind of bring it back to the form we saw a couple years ago when they were in the playoffs. I think there's a very good chance we see this back to one of the best 5 units in the league.
Hey Kyle, what do you prefer as a if you're playing tackle, 270 or 245, and sort of can turn the corner and a little quicker?
Give me 270. Give me 270 for a number of reasons.
But you're
first of which is that they do not move as well as the 250,
right,
or the 240. Second of which is it's a larger target area with a larger player. For the most part, the bigger guys don't have as many moves in their toolbox. You talked about Leatu Latu. He's got a number of ways in which he can win because of his cut, because of his work ethic, because of a number of things. These big bangers on the edge aren't necessarily the guys who can attack edges really well. They want to run right down the V of your neck and flush that quarterback into their man-eating beast at the other edge, who's Myles Garrett, if he's not already winning clean. So to Mike's point, 2 big guys on the edge. I mean, 6'4", 270, that's a massive man. And with some pop, they're going to be getting after quarterbacks. He was part-time, full-time now. Those pressures are priceless when you've got Myles on the other side who can finish.
Let's get to DT. Ryan, who is your DT breakout?
All right, I'm going to go outside of the first round, only because of a foot injury. He lasted the round 2. But Johnny Newton out of Illinois played for the Commanders last year. And that defense at Illinois got after it a few years ago. Devin Witherspoon was on that team, of course. He was a top 5 pick. And then Johnny Newton should have been a first-round pick. He was injured. He's going to have some shoes to fill because they moved on from Jonathan Allen. And I think he's going to get his opportunity in that defense. He was so juiced up coming out of college, and he played with some power as well. And I think now that he's recovered from that foot injury, we're going to see a lot of those sorts of plays that we saw from him in college, and I'm excited to see what that looks like. But I think he has a chance to be a breakout guy in a way that sometimes I don't want to put this on him. But if you told me we get towards the end of the road, where the end of the road is Jeffrey Simmons at some point, I could see that with Johnny Newton. Maybe not this year, but they're athletically, he checks a lot of boxes, and we saw that consistently in college. Just the injury slowed him down a little bit coming out.
Yeah, I love Johnny Newton. I think I had him like top 20 on my board that year, and obviously injury fell. And last year he was up and down. I think he needs to get a little bit stronger, talent in the NFL, but they got kind of a rotation there at defensive tackle now that I think he's going to be, playing the pass downs, which is where that guy will make an impact. All right, mine. I'm going with Moro Ajomo, Philadelphia Eagles defensive tackle. He will be filling basically the Milton Williams role this year. Was a sub-package player a season ago, still had 39 pressures on 342 pass rushing snaps, including the playoffs. He's an interesting sort of player because he spent 5 years at Texas. He's heading into year 3, but he's still only 23 years old. So this guy was like 17 entering college, 21 on draft day, and still very much an ascending player. Went from not even seeing the football field whatsoever in 2023 to that impact I touched on earlier last season. And even in the Super Bowl, he had 3 pressures in the Super Bowl. So this is a guy that I think is more than qualified to fill that role. And I think he becomes Milton Williams, but I think we start talking about him as just like the next man up in this Philadelphia Eagles machine that is their defensive line.
The crazy thing about this team isn't all the players that they have their first round picks, but Ajomo was a 7th rounder. Jalen Hunt was a reach as a 3rd rounder who appears to be working out. Keely Ringo, who's going to win the job, was a 4th rounder. There's some first round buzz about him. I mean, back in the fall, he didn't play up to his expectations his final year in college. But it is Reed Blankenship. I don't even know if he was drafted. Like, I don't know when he was taken, but he plays. Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, the list goes on, and we know about all the first round talent they have, especially on defense. But it's just crazy to me how they unearth these guys and they stick them in, and they're huge contributors to what this team has become. It's sort of fun to watch as someone who's not a fan of an NFC team, but I would imagine if you're an NFC East fan, it gets tiresome because it just feels like they hit home run after home run.
How do you think they do that?
Hard work and prayer.
Low hanging fruit. Take the advantages. They
You don't think Big Dom they lock him in a room with Big Dom and they're like, "Yo, Big Dom, what was he made of?" You know?
Love it.
But Dom's like, thumbs up or thumbs down.
Right.
And they're also not afraid to improve positions that are already full. So
Yeah.
you know, I think that's the other biggest thing is they're not. So many teams go in the draft and they're like, we got to find a corner.
What do we need?
And we got to find a linebacker. And then you get to the board and it's like, oh shit, you know, a top 5 players here, but we really needed that corner, so we draft the corner. And that's how you stay bad, in my opinion. The Eagles, they don't say that at all. Now, obviously, it worked out this past year how, you know, the need at linebacker, they get the best linebacker in the draft to fall to them, but they didn't need Nolan Smith when they drafted Nolan Smith. They're just like, this guy fell to us. Okay. You know, I don't think a lot of people had Nolan Smith outside the top 20, and Nolan Smith fell to back end of the first round. So
they just take football players, bro. Yep. Like if you're a football player, it's like Baltimore, dude. For whatever reason, Baltimore has figured out a way to just be like, we don't miss. And you see a couple teams that have, you know, good history like that. Tampa Bay is one where I like a lot of the guys they bring in, but there's, you know, a special sauce there that's just missing from a number of these programs.
Let's get to linebacker. Who you got at linebacker, Ryan?
All right, I got a double dip. My cousin and my place for my favorite team, Peyton Wilson, NC State.
Love this pick. Oh, I love this pick.
So he went 99th overall because he's I think he has 2 knees and 2 shoulders, and that's the only reason. He would have been a top 32
with
pick.
0 tendons in any of them. Zero tendons in any.
Can't tear him.
Hypermobility, baby.
Yeah.
Can't tear what you don't have. We talked to him at the combine, and he's like a country kid from North Carolina, and he said, you know, my dad would work my ass super hard on the farm, and you know, that's one thing, but I think I wanted to play football. So he had a reason to focus on football, and he is laser focused on football. He is like a solid kid. He goes home after work and just does what he does, and most of it's football related. But the athleticism after 2 knees and 2 shoulders is absolutely insane. One of my favorite plays from last year watching the Steelers, and they were actually pretty hard to come by. He had Justice Hill in a wheel route, and he somehow intercepted the ball without even looking at it down the left sideline, and they ended up winning that game. I think they did. If they had, they had no business beating them. But those are sorts of plays that off-ball linebackers, if you asked an off-ball linebacker to do that 20 years ago, their hips would fall off, and now it's almost commonplace with the way these guys are so insanely athletic. So fingers crossed, if he can stay healthy, I think he can be one of the best off-ball linebackers in the league.
Yeah, there were 2 guys in last year's class who were just athletic freaks. And I think, you know, the other one being Edrin Cooper.
Yeah.
Peyton Wilson. And I think everyone going into year 2 is like, yeah, they're going to be good. Like, I didn't even put Edrin Cooper here because truthfully, he's already broken out. If you watch him, what he did at the end of the season last year, it's like, that's what it's supposed to look like.
It's perfect for Pittsburgh, dude. They've had this, I don't want to say a void at linebacker because there have been some good players that I played against that were linebackers for Pittsburgh, but it just feels like if Peyton Wilson can stay healthy, he's going to be one of these pieces that the Pittsburgh faithful just love. I mean, you can't help but say this, you know, this white linebacker that plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to get rooted for by the Yinzers. What are you kidding me? Look, the play that you pointed out was him covering Justice. It was Justice Hill getting covered, you know, like a shadow by Peyton Wilson down the sideline. The thing that I love about Peyton Wilson is his vision and his ability to tackle with effectiveness and efficiently. Missed tackles kill defenses. Peyton Wilson doesn't miss many. And you were talking about his habits after work, like when he goes home. It just reminds me of another linebacker that I used to play against from the Carolina Panthers by the name of Luke Kuechly. And he was a nightmare to play against. I played against him a number of times. I never touched him. That's how well read he was. That's how prepared he was. Peyton gives me those similar vibes. As a matter of fact, I saw Luke Kuechly this offseason at a golf event, and I walked up. I put my hands on him so hard. And I said, I've been waiting to get my hands on you, bro. Like, I'm sorry that it had to be like, we don't even know each other. I cornered him in like the bar area, and I was like, you know what has to happen now, Luke. Yeah. And then they voided my contract.
Oh man, Luke Kuechly on his bye week. I beat him in cornhole, 2019.
Funny guy. Luke
Still
Kuechly.
remember it.
Hilarious.
I was my best game of cornhole of my life too.
There you go.
Showed up when it mattered most.
Thank God one of us got him.
Yeah.
The funny thing was I didn't actually even recognize him. I went up and I was like, hey, can I get next game? He's like, sure. I get up there. I just stand next to the board. I'm like, I am Mike. He's like, Luke. And I'm like, you're Luke Kuechly.
Then you looked at his calves and you were like,
I'm like, oh, wait. All of a sudden I realized there's like not an ounce of fat on this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy player. All right, my linebacker, Omar Speights, Los Angeles Rams. UDFA last year, starts down the stretch for this team, and the guy is a thumper. He's not big, but he comes downhill, will hit with reckless abandon, can take on blocks. And in that defense, with that defensive line in front of him, this guy's going to have 1,000 tackles. He had 66 tackles last year in only half a season and only 4 missed tackles. Coverage, we'll see. But this guy is going to be a playmaker in the running game, a playmaker as a blitzer when called upon in that regard. And truthfully, I don't think they need much more out of that with given how good their front 4 is. So Omar Speights going to have, if he's not top 5 in tackles, I'd be surprised. I'll just say that.
Again, it just goes to, and the Rams are actually pretty good at this too, finding guys that are late round draft picks or undrafted and just sticking them out there, and those guys just make plays. But I think your other point's an important one. He knows his role, and they have so many dudes around him and in front of him that it makes his life easier as well. I almost put Braden Fisk on this list, but I thought he may have already broken out. So I didn't, just speaking of one of his teammates. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I get it. I'm with you.
All right, cornerback. Who we got? Secondary.
Oh, my guy, Kamari Lassiter, 2nd-round pick because he ran into the 4.6s. I thought he had. I remember watching his tape, and tell me what you think, Mike. He didn't look like a 4.6 guy to me. Like I thought he was dominant.
The 4.6 got me though. I moved him down. My board.
You have to.
That got me. I loved him. I had him like top 30.
She's a 10, but her breath stinks.
That's right. Right. Exactly.
You said what?
But he played in Houston exactly like he played at Georgia. And I give him all the credit in the world because sometimes, I mean, you sort of see the body language of the combine when these guys run a slow time or, the Senior Bowl practices aren't going well. None of that stuff apparently affected Kamari Lassiter because it translated immediately to that defense. And I think that defense is going to be better this year. Just looking at some of his advanced metrics, he was 3rd in pass success rate against all cornerbacks drafted in the last 3 years. He was 2nd in coverage success rate. Opposing QB rating was 7th. Number 1 was Derek Stingley. Number 2 was Nate Wiggins. So you get an idea of the and number 6 was Sauce. So you get an idea of the company he's keeping. And again, going back to Kyle's point, I think he's only going to get better this year. I love the way he plays, the physicality with which he plays, and the way he plays in coverage. Sign me up for that.
Last year draft class too, just to discuss just for a sec. Last year's draft class is going to go down as insane. We've had 2 insane ones in the last 5 years. 2021, we touched on the other show how the contracts of like the top 14 picks in that draft have just been like no one's making under $25 million a year. That was drafted there. And now last year we're seeing it even just the depth. Guys who are way down the board, guys like Kamari Lassiter, guys like Nate Wiggins look like they're going to be like top 10 players at their respective position. So it was a crazy good draft class in 2024. All right, my cornerback is another guy from that class, but this one 5th rounder, I believe, Jarvis Brownlee of the Tennessee Titans. I had to give the Titans some love. They need something to look forward to this year. He is that feisty press corner. He had a little bit of a rookie wall down the stretch. I think the Titans actually, as a franchise, hit the rookie wall down the stretch, but he is a guy that will get after it. He is part of the reason why they had the fewest passing yards, against in the entire NFL last year. The other reason was they were getting blown out in every game. But Brownlee, you just watch him and his man match ability. If L'Jarius Sneed can be the L'Jarius Sneed we saw in Kansas City, this is a defense that can actually go toe to toe with a lot of people and play man cover. Not a lot of defense can. This is one that should be able to. We'll obviously see how it goes there for this season. I'm not having high expectations for the Titans, but Jarvis Brownlee, I think you'll talk about him as a long-term starter in Tennessee, a guy that they're going to want to extend in time after this season.
Yeah, I think last year's draft class was not surprisingly. I think it's going to, when we look back, we're going to realize how deep it was. It felt deep at the time, and I loved Brownlee coming out, the physicality with which he played. And I do think the secondary has a chance. I mean, we'll see. They drafted Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State as well, who's coming off the injury. But I think the way Brownlee played last year in a season that pretty much went sideways, at least the second half of that season, I give him a lot of credit for how that ended up. But I don't know. I don't have high hopes for this team this year, but that's another conversation.
All right, who we got in the slot/nickel position, Ryan?
Oh yeah, my guy Tyke Smith, and as you noted, Mike, he's probably going to play safety alongside Antoine this season. But I loved him coming out of Georgia, and it was him. Like I thought, Javon Bullard, who went to your Packers, I believe, was a little better athletically coming out. But Tyke just seems to make plays. And maybe he gets some run at the slot this year too, but he had a good run there as a rookie, and he flashed a ton. He can tackle, he can cover, and I think they love the idea of him playing next to Antoine. And I think they see some similarities between him and Winfield, which is also a good thing. I think he's an inch taller, so he's 5'10". But I think that versatility in the back end makes him a really good player and one you can move around if you want to. So wherever he ends up, he makes that defense better, and that defense, when it's healthy, is going to be able to get after it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, slot safety are sometimes kind of bunched into one, but not every slot can just go back and play safety. They are different skill sets, going from like on the football, around the line of scrimmage, to having to see things top down from distance, angles. It is a different skill set. Guys aren't just interchangeable in that manner. But watching Tyke Smith, just the way he plays the game, you feel pretty good about him being interchangeable in that manner. He's the type of guy that I would bet on him being able to do it. Now, he didn't do it really his entire collegiate career either. He was at West Virginia. He was banged up early on in his career at Georgia, but pretty much was a slot his entire time there. So it will be interesting to monitor how that works out. But it's almost like the fallback plan. It's like, oh, he stinks in deep. Well, he's going to be awesome in the slot. So it's not really a big deal. All right, my first safety. I'm going to go with Cam Kitchens of the Los Angeles Rams. I loved another guy who I loved his tape. Now he's a little up and down at Miami. And then he ran a 4.65, and I was like, 4.65. Similar to Kamari last year. It's like, what do you do with that?
That's what Lane Johnson ran.
It's an athlete-driven league. Exactly. Like, it really is. But I think he went to the perfect defense to run a 4.65 in, truthfully, because the way they set that up, we've talked about it a bunch, but the Rams really play top down. The 4.65 isn't really coming into play because he's not having to turn and run much. You're just not going to beat this team deep. They have so much cushion that they give. But then he's the perfect guy to break from that deep alignment before quarterback's ready, before quarterback sees him. And he had 4 picks as a rookie. He had 11 picks his last 2 years of college. And he is just a guy that sees things faster than everyone else around him. So in that defense, with that pass rush, take all the chances you want. You will not have 4 seconds as a quarterback to, if you try to double move him, you ain't getting to that second move. Jared Verse is in your lap. So I do think Cam Kitchens primed for, just given the situation, given who he is, I think he's going to have a, 6, 7, 8 pick type of year this year.
As our colleague BMAC likes to say when he was playing secondary cornerback for the Steelers, make it hot so we can squat. So you got 2.5 seconds. Yeah. So good luck to you. I like Cam a lot too coming out, and he's not that big. I remember talking to him at the combine, and one of the things that bothered our buddy Rick Spielman when we talked to him was that I remember asking about a specific end zone touchdown where he had middle of the field coverage, and he sort of made an excuse as to what happened.
No, the Georgia Tech game where he lost it. Like, they literally lost the game on that play.
It could. I don't know if I called him out for that. I didn't want to make him feel bad. Whatever it was, Rick's like, yeah, don't make excuses. Even if in fact he did what he's supposed to do and it was someone else's fault. Rick wasn't crazy about that, but he was a good kid, and obviously it translated in the Rams. Also, sort of the Puka Nacua thing. Like Cam Kitchens could have been playing 4.3 in terms of the GPS, and then he just had a bad day running. So they maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But I love the pick, and to your point, I love the fit and what they do in LA.
All right, last position. Who is your safety?
This is such a layup. I mean, you could have someone not know anything about football say this, but I just could. Again, it doesn't make me happy as a Steelers fan, but the reality is that, and Kyle talked about it earlier, the Ravens know exactly what they're doing when it comes to drafting players. And the crime committed by allowing them to get Kyle Hamilton in the middle of the first round a few years ago and then double down with Malachi Starks late in the first round this year, I feel like some people should be arrested for that, because it just feels like the type of thing.
Illuminati.
It's good. It's gonna. It's 100% an Illuminati situation. What
It's the low hanging fruit. You just take the good players.
Low hanging fruit. Assuming everyone stays healthy, explain to me how this won't work out. Let me start there.
It will.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. That's all I got. Malachi Starks, Kirby Smart loved him because he was one of the smartest players ever to play for Kirby Smart. He's a track guy. We saw what he did last year. Sorry, the year before that. He's a great player, and he's a little more athletic than Kyle. He'll probably play deeper than Kyle. So what? That's fine. That's exactly what you want. Nate Wiggins is coming in the year two. I talked about what a good rookie season he had. They signed Jair Alexander to a 1-year deal, but they have TJ Tampa, who's a long former wide receiver at cornerback. He's coming along. So again, this defense is going to be formidable. And they drafted Mike Green. Yeah, let's not forget about that. Okay, great.
I need Isaiah Likely's foot to get better so this Ravens team can go on that AFC title run that I predicted a couple weeks ago. I'm not, you know what? I'm walking back the Super Bowl prediction, but as you're pointing out here, Ryan, I mean, just put it on autopilot. Let the players just go play. You know what I saw yesterday was Marlon Humphrey. I'm on Twitter a lot. Marlon Humphrey was quote tweeting an article about Lamar, the Ravens practices or whatever. And he replied, "We're bringing his ass to the ground tomorrow." And I'm like, this is the football that I love and miss. This is the banter that you get in training camp. And when you're on a team like the Ravens, and there ain't many of them, you get real iron sharpens iron. That shit's written on every high school gym across America, but it's only really lived by about half a dozen units in America, and the Ravens are one of them. I just love the Ravens, man. Defense, offense, everything.
Yeah, they feel like one of those teams where it's just like, hey, offensively, they can play any game they want to and beat you any which way. And then defensively, there's not a spot where they're weak, where it's like, yeah, this could be their Achilles heel. The Achilles heel is that we've said this before. That's the Achilles heel. It's like they've kind of been that team for a while, but just not to this degree. This Baltimore Ravens team is stupid loaded. All right, let's recap defense. Front four, Latu, Isaiah McGuire, your edge rushers, Moro Jomo, Johnny Newton of the Eagles and Commanders, respectively, your interior. Linebacking core of Omar Spates from the Rams, Peyton Wilson from the Steelers. Secondary, Kamari Lassiter of the Texans, as well as Jarvis Brownlee of the Titans. At corner, Tyke Smith, Malachi Starks, Cam Kinchins, your slot/safeties. Yeah, that's a good unit. Let's see, who was the most represented here? We got 2 Rams defensively. No other teams doubling up on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball.
Had at least 2 Bears, I believe, because I had Rome and Darnell.
2 Bears. I could have gone Terrell Smith at corner. I think he went that job over Tyreek Stevenson this year, just given Tyreek Stevenson's mental spiral. But we shall see.
We forgot to put Jack Sanborn on the list. Okay,
we didn't give you linebacker.
Dude, we're all laughing. This guy Jack Sanborn, he's playing with his guy down there in Dallas. All right, Eberflus is his DC. He did a good job in Chicago. I think Dallas fans are going to like Sanborn. Maybe not an all-pro, but fan favorite.
All right, well, that's been today's Jack Sanborn show. Thanks so much for Ryan Wilson for coming on. We will be back tomorrow. We're going over some Hall of Famers. It's the Hall of Fame game tomorrow. So we're going to look at who in the NFL is a lock, who's on the outside looking in, and who might be on the path, but just needs a few more years. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, keep pushing.